All right, in today's edition of the ECG step-by-step, yes, I forgot what it was called, we are going to take a look at a multifocal atrial tachycardia. If you have not watched the video for a wandering atrial pacemaker, I highly suggest that you go ahead and do that first, because essentially the roles are the same, but the difference here will be the rate. So let's dive in here and take a look at some things. So first off, is this a readable strip? And our answer here is yes. Are P waves present or absent? And as I come down through, I can see that there are at least P waves here. And when I want to take a look at something like this, again, I'm going to pull in my calipers just to help me out here, right? So whether or not these are the calipers that you would normally use, you know, you're going to have the little thing to expand out and little pointy things that are on the end. You could use those. You could use a piece of paper. Whatever it is, use that to actually help you find whether or not things exist. And if I start tracking this down, what you will notice is, there are what appears to be P waves occurring all over the place. So I do have P waves, and I'm going to stop right there for that. But I do have P waves. They are present. So they are present. Do I have a P wave for every QRS? And here's where I start to run into a little bit of a problem, because there's a P wave in a QRS. Okay? There's a P wave in a QRS. I can see those. But as soon as I start getting down to some different things, and if you notice that if I brought this back down, okay, if I brought this back down here, that's a P wave that sits right there. Okay, so there is a P wave that is sitting right here. And that means that I really need to be careful about that, because I could have missed that. So that is a P wave that is sitting right in there. So there is not a P wave for every QRS. So therefore, when we come back here and take a look at this, there is not a QRS for every P wave. So both of these are now no. And it appears right off the bat that our PR interval is going to be, it definitely will be inconsistent because of where things are at, but we're going to bring this in here and let's just measure a PR interval. So let's go with this one right here, since we had already circled it. Okay, so I went ahead and circled that, and really this looks like it's about 0.20 there, and this is variable over here. That's a P wave, and there's a P wave there. So the PR interval is going to be variable. Okay, so we can just do this. Therefore, it is not consistent. And when we said, are the P waves regular, we pretty much said, yeah, they look like they are, because they're variable, but they almost track out. Our atrial rate, when we start counting through these things, it's kind of tough to see. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Now, where I'm marking those is where they look like they have some P waves. So we are dealing with an atrial rate that is probably about 140. So what we know here is that this is greater than 100. And now when we look at our QRS duration, we can see here that our QRS duration looks to be at 0.08. Okay, so we're going to just go ahead and put that in here. And we're now going to make sure that that has that. I don't want to shortchange you as you're watching this video, but it looks like it's pretty small. Yeah, I can't get those top calipers in there. So it does look like that's at about 0.08. So we're just going to move those over here. And a ventricular rate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So our ventricular rate here is sitting at 90. And we have a irregular rhythm. And really, it is irregularly irregular. right? There's no irregular. Because we can't find a pattern that actually exists there. So, what is happening is that this is essentially a, don't freak out, this is essentially a wandering atrial pacemaker, but because it is much faster now, okay, and I'm just going to draw the top part here, okay, so when we draw this top part of our pacemaker sites, okay, anything here that is in yellow is supposed to be the ones that we have talked about, okay. So when we just deal with everything that is sitting here, we're saying that there are multiple pacemakers that are appearing in the atria. Now, remember the role of the heart is the fastest rolls. Okay? So if the fastest pacemaker rolls, that means that this one starts firing maybe at 100. This next one starts firing at about a rate of 140. So what will happen is that they're bouncing all over the place. And that's why you start to see that there is a difference here in these, where these P waves are. And there are different morphologies. So meaning that this one looks different than this first one. And this one here looks different because there's another one that's buried up in here. So they're all different. Now, why in the world are they not firing off QRS complexes all the time? Well, let's, if you go back here and, excuse me, if we look right here, okay? So if we look right here, what we're going to find out is that here is a T wave, okay? This P wave fired and there was no reaction right off the bat. There's probably, the issue here is that probably this P wave fired so close to where this T wave is that it did not have enough stimulus to actually fire off the ventricles. So that's typically what is happening, is that they're moving so fast that the ventricles are just, the AV junction here is actually trying to control things as to what's going on. That's why you see that they'll come through and they are not. So it may not have been able to be transmitted down, so the AV junction may not have been able to send that down right away, or it held it up. And then when it did send it down, this one actually was allowed to go down and fire off the QRS complex. So it does make a difference here. This T wave was here. This one here is telling me that this AV junction probably stopped it. So there's our nice little stop sign, right? So if it stopped it, then it allowed the next one to go down, which is why you get this QRS complex there. Okay, so this is coming from multiple locations up in the atria. This is a multifocal atrial tachycardia. Okay, all right.